Given my many years of home building and given my enthusiasm for all things sustainable, sustainable home building practices, sustainable home building products, you would suspect that I know a lot about solar installations. And yes, I have an overview, but I really am not familiar with today's solar practices. I have certainly been looking online as we all search for answers online, 5 pages deep in Google, and all you're getting are these infomercial articles. Articles that are asking you, give me your zip code, give me your address, and we'll give you a free analysis. Caution. So to give you real information from real experts, I invited two to help us today. With us is Rob Lifflander. He's the owner of Paragon Renewable Energy. Rob focuses on large-scale installations, schools, big buildings. Joe Salonia, his company is Synergy Smart Homes. He installs residential systems from Connecticut all the way up and throughout Massachusetts. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabine.
So Joe, starting with you, based on my frustration, how should homeowners approach solar?
I think it's important that homeowners get educated as much as possible before looking into solar. Like you were saying before, every time you do a Google search, you end up on a landing page of somebody trying to buy your contact information or sell you a lead or basically the best way to do it is work with local solar installation companies, work with the Connecticut Green Bank. Every state has a localized point of contact where a customer can reach out to gather as much information. But start local. Start with your local installers. That's going to be the best way to get information.
And what are the drivers that are part of that decision-making process? What should you be looking at?
Most people look into solar for financial reasons, just like they would, with home heating or home cooling or anything like that. So the biggest driver right now for solar is financial reasons. A lot of people do love the fact that it is a renewable energy. You are going to reduce your emissions over time. But most of the time, the biggest driver right now is financially speaking. What's the best way to spend my money?
Toward energy independence, I assume.
Yeah, energy independence. Solar. The one thing great about solar is you're setting yourself up for the future. You're not worrying about what the utility does in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Solar panels last for 50 to 60 years before they really end of life. So, you're setting the house up or your family up for the next 50, 60 years to be energy independent.
And Rob, sort of in big buckets, how should consumers think about their solar installation?
Well, I should add to what Joe was saying that, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, which is essentially Joe and I's reach, we have some of the highest electricity rates in the continental U.S. We're probably second after Hawaii. Solar can bring a lot of value to the current homeowner, but also, when someone is looking at a new home to buy, they think about, how much are the taxes, the local taxes, and the lower the taxes, the higher price they can ask for their house. Well, if you have lower operating expenses for your house, then that will increase the value of your house. We look at it from, we try to simplify it for our clients, both Joe and I. We are the experts on the actual technology, on the building considerations, on the local incentives, on the financing options. But in general, I look at it from two perspectives, a physical perspective and a financial perspective. So, for a homeowner, it should be very simple. Find a local installer, figure out what is possible at your house, what kind of tree shading there is. And then we have specialized software that can make a very accurate forecast of how much energy that system is going to produce over a year. Once we figure that out, it's really on the installer or the solar developer to consult with the homeowner on what is the best financing option for them. So, both Joe and I do that. Joe does it for residential installations, and I do it for commercial buildings.
Joe, what are some of the disqualifying considerations in solar?
There are some roofs that don't qualify for solar, such as like a metal shingle or wood cedar shake roofs that don't qualify. There are some, people's homes that are abutted against a forest, and it doesn't, make financial sense to remove 40 or 50 trees. But that's really up to the solar company to make the determination about what disqualifies your house. It's unfortunate, but a lot of customers or a lot of homeowners look at their home and automatically say whether or not they're good candidates for solar. But with like Rob was saying, with the high cost of utilities right now, it makes more financial sense to go solar than ever before.
Right.
Shaded homes are better for solar than ever before, just because the high cost of utilities and the increasing cost of the utilities.
You mentioned wood shingle roofs. Is that because of the anchoring of the system, or why would wood shingles not work?
Yeah, there's not really a product that can guarantee no leaks over a 25-year period with a wood shingle, or at least nothing that I've come across. We steer away from a wood shingle. While it's not very common, it's probably 1 or 2% of every home that we work with might have a wood shingle, but yeah, wood shingles are tough to work with. I'm sure there are manufacturers out there that do work with a wood shingle as far as a mounting or a flashing kit. But that's just, we steer away from it as of right now.
So take us through the components of a solar system, just sort of to rough it out. What are the parts that you guys put together?
So for residential, you have your mounting bracket, which mounts to the rafter. You have your racking system, which mounts to your mounting bracket, and then you have your panels and microinverters or centralized inverter system. The microinverters and centralized inverter, they'll turn the DC energy into the AC energy, and then your panels, depending on which product you use, it basically turns the sunlight into energy.
And then there's the storage component of some
Yeah.
sort.
Over the past few years, storage has become more popular. Within Connecticut, there's a lot of good state rebates and utility rebates for storage. It's still expensive. If you're already using a backup generator or a whole home propane backup generator, you probably want to wait till you have to replace it in order, to take a second look at storage. But yes, storage is you create a microgrid essentially with the panels and the battery. And it's one of the only options you have for long-term outages where you're not relying on a fuel truck to come fill your propane tank. Your panels will produce the energy for the storage. Your battery and storage will back up your home, and then it's just an ongoing effect.
You mentioned the green bank before. Can you just elaborate a little bit more? What are the financing options of the green bank and Greenback in Connecticut? Are there other like organizations in other states?
Yeah, there are. Myself and Rob looked, and there's essentially almost a green bank or in every state, where there's a state-sponsored finance company that works directly with vetted solar companies, and that's what's really important about the green bank. is that they're vetting the contractors that have access to their financials, and they're also inspecting the systems that are installed under the Green Bank loan. The Green Bank loan is more of your typical mortgage style loan where you're borrowing money and you're paying that money back, and in return you're getting solar. There's no hidden costs or hidden fees. There's no dealer fees. There's no origination fees. So the Green Bank is very cut and dry when it comes to what you're paying for the solar. And the Green Bank allows you to bundle other energy efficiencies in with your solar as far as windows, heating and cooling, insulation. So there's a lot of options when you're working with the Connecticut Green Bank.
Interesting. And I think there's also an inspection component to this whole
Yeah,
thing, right?
the inspection, it's unlike the town inspection. Like we do a town inspection after an installation to make sure it meets all codes, electrical and building codes. The Connecticut Green Bank also does their own inspection, and they want to see, real professionalism on these jobs. They want to make sure that no corners were cut, that everything's labeled correctly, that the homeowner and customer know exactly how their system works, how it shuts off, how it turns on. And that's, at first it was a pain point, for us as a company, because we were getting called out by the Connecticut Green Bank for stuff we didn't realize they were looking for, because we were passing all the state and electrical and building codes, but the Connecticut Green Bank has another set of codes that they like to look at, which is their own personal codes. So, at first it was a hurdle for us, but now it's kind of become a leverage for us because it really, separates a cutting corners versus a company that does things well,
Professionally?
professionally, and by the books, I guess you would say.
I want to really underscore that because I think you can't have enough qualified eyeballs on installations because the system is, the process is always a homeowner wants to do something, hires a whole bunch of people, and then they're kind of left to wonder, now, was this good or was it not? So to have an independent reviewer, inspector, whatever you want to call them, look at a project gives you a lot of comfort as a homeowner, I believe.
For
It's
sure,
really
it definitely does. Yeah.
I want to, Joe, I just want to add that, both Joe and I, we are basically general contractors with specialized technical knowledge in solar and, very importantly, financial knowledge in solar. So, we employ electricians, engineers, we go for permits, we follow OSHA safety rules, we follow the National Electric Code, we follow the International Building Code, but at the end of the day, there are things that separate us from an electrician who might say that they know solar, but they don't have the experience that we have with the different products, with the state in terms of the incentives that are run by the utilities typically. Joe's done business in probably 40 or 45 towns, cities and towns in state of Connecticut. I've probably done commercial projects in 15 or 20 towns in Connecticut, and knowing what the inspectors are looking for can keep a 1-month project from turning into a 6-month project. So I can't emphasize enough. And at the beginning you asked how do you start? What's the best place to start? So in state of Connecticut, it's probably the Connecticut Green Bank's list of authorized solar developers. And those are companies that do business with the Connecticut Green Bank and have been vetted by the Connecticut Green Bank. And when they find, and they do kick people off of that list. So, you really want someone that knows the local utilities, knows the local towns, knows the local incentives, the local financing options. And it is not going to be, certainly there are national companies, but, do you really want to be getting on, dialing an 800 number to someone in Texas or California when, you have an issue with your system, you probably want somebody that can be there the next day or within 48 hours.
Hopping back once more to some of the product uh, aspects, we've all heard about the solar shingles from Tesla. What kind of options are there from the panel to the solar shingles, et cetera, and how do they all perform and connect?
I can
Yeah,
take this one,
go
Joe.
ahead.
So,
Yep.
so, so I've done a fair amount of research into solar shingles and something called building integrated PV or photovoltaic, and essentially they have anywhere from 70 to 90% less performance for the same price, or you could say that they're 3 to 4 times more expensive. I understand some people are concerned about the aesthetics of solar panels on their roof, although most residential applications or installations use a jet black panel with skirts around the outside, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But if you really want to get the best bang for the buck, you really need to look at installing traditional silicon solar panels.
And hopping to the other side of the equation, Joe, what about the storage? If you do choose to have, again, the Tesla Powerwall, Tesla has done a good job marketing all this stuff. I think it's brought a lot of awareness to the industry. It's not necessarily that you install a Tesla Powerwall, but take us through the options that exist in the storage world.
There are a lot of players now in energy storage. You have Tesla, Franklin, Enphase, Sonnen, pretty much any manufacturer. SolarEdge has a storage option now. They all are lithium iron phosphate, which reduces the fire hazard of them. They all come in fireproof cases. They're all good options. So one option isn't going to be better than the other specifically. There are some that can do things differently than others, like a Franklin battery. You can recharge the battery with a generator, whereas a Powerwall 3, you cannot do that. But Tesla being the marketing company that it is, a lot of people look at Tesla as their first pick. They're all good products. They all have a place in everybody's house. It comes down to what the customer is looking for and what the homeowner is looking for their battery to do, and we kind of determine from there which battery would be the best option.
When you say what they're looking to do, what are the options? I'm not
So
sure.
with a Tesla Powerwall, Tesla Powerwall 3 has the inverter built into the Powerwall now, rather than putting the inverter or buying an inverter separately. So a Tesla Powerwall 3, we've installed a ton of those projects, and they work great. We've had one customer or two customers where we've installed Franklin batteries, and the customer specifically asked for a battery that could get backed up by a generator. So we knew right away that he was looking at a Franklin battery. We have a customer that loves Enphase, and he doesn't even want to look at Tesla or Franklin batteries, so we're going the Enphase route. We try to point the customer in the direction that we think would work best for them, but ultimately, it's their decision which manufacturer they want to choose. They're all priced fairly the same, within 5 or 10% of each other. So it comes down to really what the customer is looking for as far as energy storage. But going back to what I said about energy storage versus home generators or even portable generators, if you have something that works for you right now, there's no real reason to dump an extra $10,000 or $20,000 into energy storage until you're ready to make the change, or until financially you're ready to make the change, or you have to make the change. So, energy storage is constantly evolving. You're going to get bigger and better every single year for the next 20 years. Right now, energy storage is kind of held back a little by the National Electric Code and the building codes, where we're allowed to put batteries, how many batteries we're allowed to put in the house, where is there a safe place to put batteries. And these are going off of the old lithium phosphate batteries, which were a little more explosive and dangerous and fire risks, but everything is kind of, all the technology has changed the past couple of years, so everything's a lithium iron phosphate now.
Yeah, before it was lithium iron,
Yeah.
much like the e-bike stories that we heard so much about in many fires. I'm actually happy to hear the shift toward lithium iron phosphate
Yeah.
personally. What are the payback periods, or what are the kilowatt costs that, generally speaking, I know it's tough to generalize, but generally one should expect?
With solar, depending on your financing, if you were to buy the system cash, what we usually like to see is a 15 to 20% internal rate of return, meaning the system will pay for itself within 5 or 6 years. And then you're basically pocketing cash for the next 30 or 40 years, offsetting utility bill. Comparing it to the stock market, comparing it to a 401k, in a great year on a 401k, you're at anywhere from 16 to 22% internal rate of return on your cash. And ultimately with solar, if we can get you 15 to 20%, it's a pretty safe place to put your money. And we see a lot more people, a lot more customers, a lot more homeowners using cash to purchase solar because they're seeing that also. Probably about 60% of our customers right now are cash. 20 to 30% are a lease, and the remainders are loan, only because the interest rates on loans right now aren't what they were, 4 or 5 years ago, and people need to understand that, that's probably never going to get back to what it was 4 or 5 years ago. But either way, any of the options, there is still a better option than sticking with your local utility company. You're going to save money with solar no matter which option you choose. Homeowners just have to be very, very transparent on what they're looking to do, whether they're trying to reduce a monthly budget, whether they're trying to spend cash and see a rate of return on their money. As long as they tell us what they're looking to do, we can find the best financial option for them.
That's an
And
interesting
Joe,
flip of thinking of a solar installation as your own little private business investment, if you will, in your own home. Here you're building a system that has a rate of return. I don't think a lot of people are thinking along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, Rob speaks to that probably on every single customer he works with because he's working with a lot of business owners. And, as a business owner myself, I'm looking for how is this money invested in this certain product going to benefit me in the future. And I like to present that as well to homeowners. But, Rob can speak more to that because he talks about it on every single consultation he's on.
I think for residential customers, another a really important thing is that when the solar company makes a presentation to you, that everything is clear. What we're doing, it all adds up. And if a solar company makes a presentation to you and you feel like you're getting the hard sell, then and you don't quite understand it, but they're not quite explaining it, that's an issue because the economics of these systems are pretty straightforward. And as Joe said, look, you're going to get the best return when you don't pay interest. If 60% of Joe's customers pay cash, it's kind of the opposite in the commercial real estate world, where commercial real estate developers want to use leverage as much as possible. So I would say about 20% of my customers use cash. But the residential solar developer, and Joe is a good one. He explains to every client he sits down with, what the options are and what his recommendations are, and that's just critical. If you don't understand, the presentation that is being made to you, then that's a problem.
That's really, really good advice. I think we've covered a lot of distance here. I certainly feel very educated. I've learned a few new perspectives. And so I want to thank you for your time and really encourage everybody who's listening and watching to really check out solar systems for their buildings. Because as we go forward, I have a feeling our electrical costs from our utilities are only going to rise, and rise some more. And the sooner we can get off that bandwagon, the better. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you, Sabine.
Thank you, Sabine.